All right, let's get right into one of the most enduring, most chilling mysteries of the 20th century. I mean, we're talking about a story that for over 60 years has had everyone scratching their heads. It's got everything: 9 lives lost under the most bizarre circumstances, clues that make no sense, and a puzzle that, until recently, seemed absolutely impossible to solve. This is the story of the Dyatlov Pass incident. So this is them, the group at the heart of it all. And you gotta understand, these weren't amateurs. We're talking 9 highly experienced grade 2 level hikers from the Ural Polytechnical Institute. They were on a seriously tough 110-mile expedition through the Ural Mountains, a place that does not mess around. They were young, they were capable, and this photo, well, this is the last one ever taken of them, just as they were setting up what would be their final campsite. And right there, that's where everything just goes dark. Because only hours after this photo was snapped, every single one of them was dead. For more than 60 years, nobody could agree on what happened up there on that desolate mountainside. And when you hear the details, you'll understand why. So to even begin to understand this, we have to jump forward a few weeks to when the search party finally found their camp. And let me tell you, what they discovered, it just made zero sense. So this is what the rescuers stumbled upon on February 26th. The tent, partially buried in snow, kind of collapsed. But the truly shocking part, all their stuff, their shoes, their heavy coats, everything they needed to survive was still inside. It was just left behind. You know right away that something went horribly, horribly wrong. And the scene was just a cascade of weirdness. I mean, look at these clues. First off, the tent was sliced open from the inside. Think about that. They weren't trying to keep something out. They were desperately trying to get out. Then you have the bodies, found way far off, some over a kilometer away. And they were barefoot, in their underwear, in temperatures of -25°C. Some of them had these massive internal injuries, like they'd been in a car crash, but with no bruises on the outside. And it gets weirder. There were traces of radioactivity on some of their clothes. And then, the most disturbing part. 2 of the bodies were missing their eyes, and 1 was missing its tongue. So with a scene like that, I mean, what are investigators supposed to think? The official investigation was pretty much a mess from the get-go. The contradictions just kept piling up, and you bet the conspiracy theories started to fly. And get this, after all that, the official conclusion from the Soviet investigation in 1959 was that they died from a compelling natural force. Yep, that's it. Super vague, right? It's a conclusion that basically explains nothing and satisfied absolutely no one. They just closed the case, sealed the files, and that was that. But then, decades later, the lead investigator, a guy named Lev Ivanov, drops an absolute bombshell. In a letter from 1991, he brings up that radioactivity again. He wrote that it pointed to a directed radiation targeting. He even said he felt pressured to drop that whole line of thinking way back in '59. I mean, come on, that just threw gasoline on the fire of all those secret military weapon theories. And the weirdness didn't stop there. People who were at the funerals said the hiker's skin had this really strange, deep brown tan. And then another group of hikers, like 30 miles away, said they saw strange orange spheres in the sky on the exact same night. So what was it? An animal attack? Some secret weapon? People were even whispering about the Yeti. The theories just spiraled completely out of control. Okay, but what if the answer isn't so out there? What if it's not a conspiracy at all? What if it was just a rare, bizarre, almost perfect storm of natural events? Something that science now can actually explain. Fast forward to 2021. A team of scientists in Switzerland, these are the top guys in snow and avalanche physics, decided to really dig into the mechanics of what could have happened. And they came up with a new model that took a look at the oldest theory in the book, an avalanche, but with a totally new twist that might just explain all those crazy contradictions. They zeroed in on a very specific kind of avalanche called a slab avalanche. Now, this is not your typical fluffy powder you see in the movies. This is when a huge, heavy, dense slab of snow just cracks and slides down as one single block. The best way to picture it is like a giant sheet of plywood sliding off a roof. It's heavy, it's solid, and it moves as one giant, unstoppable piece. So you might be asking, if it was an avalanche, why was that theory dismissed for so long? And that is the million-dollar question. The main reason was the slope where they camped.
It was less than 30 degrees, and pretty much everyone agrees that's just too gentle for an avalanche to happen. On paper, it was impossible.
But here's the first big breakthrough from the new research. Yeah, the average slope of the mountain was pretty gentle, but when they looked at the super detailed topographical data, the exact spot where the hikers cut into the snow to pitch their tent was actually much steeper. We're talking right on that 28 to 30 degree line. The danger wasn't obvious. It was hidden right there in the snowpack.
Okay, so a slide was possible. More possible than anyone thought. But that still doesn't explain all the other weird stuff, right? Let's see how this new theory starts to connect the dots.
And here's the next huge problem for the avalanche theory. We know the hikers set up their camp in the late afternoon, but all the evidence points to them dying much later that night, probably 9 to 13 hours later. So why the huge delay? Why did it wait?
Well, the whole chain reaction starts with something they did themselves. To shelter their tent from the insane winds, they cut into the side of the slope to create a flat ledge. It makes total sense. It's what you do. But that one action, that cut, was the critical first step. It basically created a fracture line in the slab of snow sitting right above them. And this is how they figured out that delay. So step 1, the hikers make that cut, creating the weak point. Step 2, these really strong winds, called katabatic winds, start blowing downhill all night, piling more and more snow right on top of that slab. Step 3, all that new snow adds weight, slowly, hour by hour, increasing the stress on that weak layer they created. And finally, step 4. After about 9 to 13 hours, the computer models show the pressure just became too much. The weak layer failed and the whole slab broke free. So the trigger wasn't instant. It was this slow, quiet buildup of pressure.
Okay, but that still leaves us with the most gruesome part of the puzzle, those injuries. I mean, they were just horrific, more like what you'd see in a high-speed car crash, not someone buried in snow. So how could a small slide cause that kind of brutal, crushing damage? This is where the simulation gets really interesting. It showed this wasn't about being buried in fluffy snow. It was about impact. That heavy, dense slab of snow came down and hit them while they were lying down inside the tent. And here's the crucial detail. They weren't lying on soft snow. For insulation, they'd laid their skis down on the ground under the tent floor. So you can see the brutal physics here. The hikers were literally caught between a hammer, that dense block of snow slamming down, and an anvil, which was the hard, unmoving row of skis right underneath them. The force had nowhere to go. It wasn't spread out. It was focused, concentrated right on their bodies. And that's what causes those devastating internal injuries without leaving a lot of marks on the outside. So there we have it, a scientific theory that seems to explain the trigger, the weird delay, and even those horrific injuries. It really does seem to solve the physical puzzle of what happened. But does it solve the whole mystery? And the honest answer is not really, not completely. The slab avalanche theory is without a doubt the best explanation we have for the physical events that took place. But what about the radioactivity? What about the missing tongue? What about those orange spheres in the sky? The science explains the mechanics of their deaths, but it doesn't and can't explain away all those other chilling details. And maybe that's where this story will always leave us. Science can now explain what likely happened, the mechanics of the snow, the physics of the impact. But can it ever fully explain the why? It can't account for the radiation, the strange sightings, or the pure human terror that must have happened in those final moments. The physics puzzle might be solved, but the true chilling mystery of Dyatlov Pass, that seems destined to stay on the mountain.